what we propose is indeed fair and proportional, partly also because of this reason. In other words, there are significant differences, even though the logic is the same, but there are significant differences between the instruments for euro area and non-euro area member states. And especially in the light that for euro area member states, the toolbox of enforcement is, say, richer and starts at an earlier stage of the excessive deficit procedure. This means first an interest-bearing deposit of 0.2% of GDP, then a non-interest-bearing deposit, and ultimately a fine. In case there are repeated breaches, this fine can go up to 0.5%. And what is important is that this fine would be, in case of countries already in the excessive deficit procedure, the fine would be immediate and it would be paid from the public accounts of the country concerned immediately, from the budget of the country concerned. While for the cohesion fund cases, we are talking about suspensions, and it is in fact only a possible suspension, because if the country takes corrective action in time, it will not face this financial consequence.
Merci. Would you like to add?
Olli has said everything. I'm here today because we had to apply for the first time this article of the cohesion fund, and that's why we had to develop a methodology which is a general methodology and can be applied, hopefully not in practice, but in principle if there are other similar cases in the future. And as Olli said already, there is a difference between the fact that concerning Eurozone countries, they would have to pay, would have to transfer money from their budget to us in a deposit immediately, whereas cohesion fund countries or non-Eurozone countries, there we have only this provision for the time being, meaning that we can only suspend commitments in the future. That's why we have discussed and I think found an appropriate decision that 0.5% as a ceiling of the GDP of a given year seems to be an adequate amount, or 50% of the commitments of a given year. So this is something we have today discussed in the college, adopted, and this methodology would apply in the current period if it's necessary for other similar countries.
Merci au vice-président Rehn et commissaire Hahn. Merci pour être venu vous présenter la décision du collège. Le collège avait aujourd'hui discuté un autre point très important et avait considéré la position de la Commission en ce qui concerne l'accord international ACTA. Et je suis très heureuse de donner le bienvenu au commissaire De Gucht qui nous joindra aux salles de presse pour vous présenter la position de la Commission.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and allow me to update you very briefly on ACTA, the anti-counterfeiting trade agreement. First of all, I'm glad to say that this morning my fellow commissioners have discussed and agreed in general with my proposal to refer the ACTA agreement to the European Court of Justice. We are planning to ask Europe's highest court to assess whether ACTA is incompatible in any way with the EU's fundamental rights and freedoms, such as freedom of expression and information, or data protection, and the right to property in case intellectual property. As you are no doubt aware, within the EU institutional process, the European Commission has passed ACTA to the Council for consideration. Council has approved ACTA unanimously, authorized the European Commission to sign, which we did. And the Council was also unanimous with implications to the Member States, as this is a mixed treaty. Now, having said this, I believe that the European Commission has a special responsibility to provide our parliamentary representatives and the public at large with the most detailed and accurate information available. So a referral will allow for Europe's top court to independently clarify the legality of this agreement. In recent weeks, the ratification process of ACTA has triggered a Europe-wide debate on ACTA, the freedom of the Internet and the importance of protecting Europe's intellectual property for our economies. But let me be very clear on this. I share people's concern for these fundamental freedoms. I welcome that people have voiced their concerns so actively, especially over the freedom of the Internet. And I also understand that there is uncertainty on what ACTA will really mean for these key issues at the end of the day. So I believe that putting ACTA before the European Court of Justice is a needed step. This debate must be based upon facts and not upon the misinformation or rumour that has dominated social media sites and blogs in recent weeks. As I have explained before the European Parliament on several occasions, ACTA is an agreement that aims to raise global standards of enforcement of intellectual property rights. These very standards are already enshrined in European law. What counts for us is getting other countries to adopt them so that European companies can defend themselves against blatant rip-offs of their products and works when they do business around the world. So this means that ACTA will not change anything in the European Union, but will matter for the European Union. Intellectual property is Europe's main raw material, but the problem is that we currently struggle to protect it outside the European Union. This hurts our companies, destroys jobs and harms our economies. This is where ACTA will change something for all of us, and as it will help protect jobs that are currently lost because counterfeited and pirated goods worth 200 billion euros are floating around on the world markets. So let me be clear, ACTA will change nothing about how we use the Internet and social websites today, since it does not introduce any new rules. ACTA only helps to enforce what is already law today. So ACTA will not censor websites to shut them down. ACTA will not hinder freedom of the Internet or freedom of speech. So let's cut through this fog of uncertainty and put ACTA in the spotlight of our highest independent judicial authority, the European Court of Justice. This clarity should help support a calm, a reasoned, an open and democratic discussion on ACTA, whether at the national or at the European level, and we will also be in contact with the other institutions to explain them why we go to the European Court of Justice and why maybe it would make sense that they make the same move. Thank you.
Merci, commissaire. Nous prenons 2-3 questions et s'il vous plaît, mentionnez votre nom et le média qui vous représente. On the back.
Monsieur le commissaire, Gheorghe Gotev de Euractiv.com à Bruxelles. Une question. Vous savez que la presse souvent aime à simplifier les choses. Donc, est-ce que nous aurions raison de dire qu'aujourd'hui, les gens anonymes ont gagné?
I'm not looking at this in terms of victory and defeats, you know. ACTA is it's a complicated treaty. It's not a simple one. It's one between European member states, European Union, and 10 other participants. It's about enforcement rules, and when you take a closer look at the discussion, it is about substantial discussions. And that's why I believe that it makes ample sense that the European Court of Justice would balance the fundamental rights that are part of this whole discussion, because protecting fundamental rights is also about balancing one against another. There is no fundamental right that is absolute. You have the freedom of expression, you have the access to information, you have data protection, you have the right to property, also the intellectual property, and I believe it's really up to the European Court of Justice to give guidance. What are the limits that the European Union in any case should respect? I'm quite confident that we have been doing this in the ACTA negotiations. I'm even more than quite confident. I'm sure of my case, but I believe that in a community and a union that is governed by the rule of law, it's very important that at a given moment in time, the European Court of Justice gives an opinion on what is really at stake and what are the rules that we have to observe. And that's why I refer it to the European Court of Justice.
Merci. Il y a une autre question derrière et puis on a fond ici après et on clôturera.
Anna Swojewska, Polish Daily Rzeczpospolita. You said that you are sure that ACTA does not endanger the fundamental freedoms, but you just want the European Court of Justice to give its verdict just to convince others. But don't you think that this kind of debate should have taken place before? And do you admit your mistake that nor the European Commission neither member states launched such a debate before? Thank you.
No, Madam, because we have been discussing this item repeatedly in the European Parliament. There have been at least 3 debates that all were concluded by the vote of a resolution by the European Parliament, and in all 3 resolutions there was a majority in favor of ACTA. Secondly, the European Parliament has been asking for more clarity on the substance, on what was really discussed. So they wanted transparency, and as soon as I have become Commissioner for Trade, I have immediately undertaken steps to have this clarity on the text, so that the result of a negotiating round was made public afterwards. Which was completely new for trade agreements, and we had to insist upon our negotiating partners that they would unveil the documents. They were not used to that at all, and they were bluntly saying even against it, but we convinced them to doing so. Every time that the European Parliament wanted to discuss this, I have been open for discussion. I listened very carefully to the arguments. I believe that the arguments that they have been putting forward have also been duly taken into consideration. And let me just refer to an independent study that was commissioned by the European Parliament, and it said in June 2011, many of the substantive issues that raised concerns in the early position papers have been addressed or are entirely absent from the final agreed text. So the debates in the European Parliament have also very heavily influenced the final text of ACTA. So I really believe that the Commission is not to blame in this document, but well, we are a democratic institution, we have the European Court of Justice, and I believe it's very important the European Court of Justice gives us guidance.
Merci. Et une dernière question que nous prenons, si ça vous va, Monsieur le Commissaire, et après on clôturera. Nicolas.
German radio. Could you tell us what does this mean for ratification of the agreement now, and perhaps also as a number of member states have suspended ratification process, what does this mean for this agreement to come into force?
This agreement has to be ratified by the member states and by the European Union, because it's a mixed agreement. And by the way, it has also been negotiated by, on the one hand, the Commission, on the other hand, the Member States.